This is Optimal Living Daily episode 2661. Do these 5 things when social anxiety has your tongue. Part 2 by Roxana Alexandru with introvertdear.com. And I'm Justin Malik. Welcome to OLD, where I read articles to you with permission from the authors, but today being a continuation from yesterday. I'd recommend listening to yesterday's episode first. That's episode 2660. But if you're all caught up, let's get right to part 2 and continue optimizing your life. Do these 5 things when social anxiety has your tongue. Part 2 by Roxana Alexandru with introvertdear.com. 5 things to do if you forget how to speak. Number 1, slow down. If I don't make a point to speak slowly, I get agitated and jump from one explanation to the next without any correlation between them. Speaking fast derails me and makes me forget what I want to say. But that's not the worst of it. It makes me look incompetent, among other things. Here are 3 reasons why you'll benefit from slowing down when you speak. Your nervousness will take a hike. That thing called adrenaline is best friends with stress, which means that the more stressed you are, especially after a few stumbles, the more your adrenaline spikes. That's correlated with an increased heart rate. If you'd be so kind to complete this sentence, and an increased heart rate means increased blank, that's right, respiration or breathing. Not only will you feel more nervous when you're speaking, but you'll also look like you are. Thus, you'll forever be stuck in a vicious cycle. And the last benefit, you'll be more in control. By speaking slowly, you give yourself extra time to dig into that amazing repertoire of words you likely hold as an introvert. This will not only allow you to fetch the best word for the situation, but you'll also be able to steer the speech in a different direction should you realize that it's not catching on with your audience. Think of it as slowing down time, which gives you the upper hand in analyzing the person in front of you and their reaction to your words. You'll gain credibility and authority. Think about your favorite orators. How fast or slow do they tend to speak? Speaking slowly shows credibility and authority because you're taking up time at the table. It's also a sign of confidence and expertise, both characteristics you want to have. Number 2, organize your thoughts. Before you meet with someone, jot down the sequence of your ideas so you have a rough outline in your head of how you'll approach the conversation. This tends to work better when you know who you're meeting, when you're meeting, and the agenda or topic of discussion. Especially for introverts and highly sensitive people whose brains process information deeply, impromptu conversations can be harder to organize, but not impossible. I've written about this before, but I tend to role-play conversations with people beforehand to arm myself with preset knowledge. If I know how I want to approach someone, say the college student who shadowed me, I'm better equipped with the right words. I wouldn't have floundered so badly if I had a plan, but instead I chose to just speak like it's the Wild West. Number 3, take your time. Take your time to make sure you're not missing anything crucial. Don't feel rushed to get to the end. This is related to number 1, but more in the sense of allowing yourself to pause between sentences, allowing the silence to work to your advantage. Do not be afraid of silence. If there's one thing you should learn, especially if you have social anxiety, it's to love the silence. Don't try to fill the space with useless words or just to make it worse because you're going to panic about it. Give yourself enough time to speak slowly and organize your thoughts. See how they're all related but different in their own way? Number 4, ask questions. What part of this makes sense? What doesn't make sense? Did I miss a point? Engage the other person to make sure they're following your train of thought. If you did number 1, number 2, and number 3, chances are they understand you just fine. But in case you missed a few steps or you see them squint their eyes strangely, stop and ask questions to make sure what you're saying is clicking. The last thing you need or want is to get the validation that you're not making sense. So don't let it get that far. Intervene occasionally to check in on them. And number 5, start over. Lastly, don't be scared to stop, take a breather, and restart. We know it works for computers, so let's assume it works for humans too. Be sure to let the other person know you're restarting. Being funny always resets the mood, so say something like, I know this probably makes no sense to you. I apologize. I've been talking too much to a baby at home these past few days. Let me reset. Being honest and vulnerable are the most powerful weapons to combat social anxiety, especially when words escape you and you feel naked and afraid. Also, there's one crucial point to remember for all of this to work, and that's to let go of any expectations you have of yourself. If you plan to bring out a whole dictionary to impress someone, no matter how much you try to complete these steps, you'll flounder because you're putting too much pressure on yourself. Always remember that the simpler the words, the more impact you make. If you have social anxiety, your main priority will always be to stay away from the vicious cycle of negative thoughts. And the best way to make that happen is not to set too high of expectations, because the moment you fail to meet them, the inner talk begins, and then everything else unravels right in front of you. I'll leave you with this. As long as you realize what's going on, especially in the moment itself, and you're taking steps to recalibrate, don't be scared to speak baby talk sometimes. We all do. You just listened to part 2 of the post titled, Do These 5 Things When Social Anxiety Has Your Tongue by Roxana Alexandru with IntrovertDear.com. What's the capital of Canada? Where do kebabs originally come from? If you can answer questions like these within 15 seconds, then Trivia Star is for you. Trivia Star is a free mobile trivia game with over 60 different categories that you get to choose from, including music, TV, animals, and celebrities. Answer correctly and beat the clock, then you move on to the next level. The questions get harder over time, but if you get stuck, you can use coins and gems to get hints and beat the level. And right now, Trivia Star is offering you 2,500 coins and 500 gems when you download and play. I love this game not only because it keeps my brain active, but it's also a great learning experience. And I'm not the only one. Trivia Star has thousands of 5-star reviews in the Apple Store and is the #1 trivia game on the App Store. Download it today to challenge yourself. Just go to the Apple or Google Store and search for Trivia Star. Download Trivia Star for free today and get ready to flex your brain muscles. Thank you again to Roxana. Good tips here. When we get in our heads and get anxious or tripped up or anything along those lines, it feels really bad in our heads and really in our entire bodies. But in most cases, from the outside perspective, we actually seem totally fine. Yeah, maybe a little tripped up, maybe breathing a little faster, but people are generally very forgiving about this sort of thing because they've been there before. Even in high pressure situations like interviews, we're human. The interviewer is hopefully human, you're human, and that humanness brings a sort of bond, I think. And if the other person is even somewhat compassionate, they want you to do well, and they'll look over the small stumbles and focus on the bigger picture because it's normal to stumble. The enemy is really our own beliefs and judgment about ourselves, because how often are we remembering the details and nuances of someone else stumbling a little bit? Probably not nearly as much, but we always remember our own. So what I was getting to yesterday was that besides awareness, there are other tactics we can use. And one is EMDR, which is becoming more and more popular because the science is showing that it's working. And that stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. I'm hoping I can find an article talking about that from an author that we have permission from. But if not, or in the meantime, that's something you might want to look into if this is something you struggle with personally. Again, that's called EMDR. And with that, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you tomorrow where your optimal life awaits.